Welcome back, team. I built a bash plate for the Dark Horse. I've powder coated the frame and components of the Iron Horse. As you know, I stripped the bike down completely, got the engine out, and in doing that it's a good opportunity to lay the harness out and, you know, go through it, check everything, just blast clean all the connectors, get some electrical spray that is good with the fittings, get some silicone spray on all the plastic, just to they go a bit hard and brittle in some areas. So the most important thing before sandblasting the frame is to fill every thread with sacrificial bolts. You know, you want to find just miscellaneous bolts and put them in every single thread around the whole bike. Loaded everything up onto the trailer and headed to the Big Smoke to visit my good friend Leon Clare. Chewy's a legend, runs a big industrial workshop, steel fabrication joint just outside of Perth, RJ Metals. And he's my go-to for creating all of this crazy stuff. And just quickly, everyone who's been waiting on their back order for T7 and World Raid GPS plates will fulfill those back orders. That's awesome. Straight into the shot peener, which is like this crazy booth that he has that spins these steel balls flat out. It's effectively the same as sandblasting, except it kind of actually dents the surface under a very small scale. But rather than the abrasive cut of sand that actually shreds metal away, this shot peens it, and it still does remove metal, but a lot less. And it gives a really good roughened surface to adhere the powder coat to. Such a good feeling to have all the rust and crap stripped off it and then immediately get it sealed up. So with the powder coat process underway, it was good to be able to hook in. We ran the cardboard template up with that design. I actually photographed it and Leon imported it into his graphic design system, and then we just fine-tuned the drawing digitally, and then he basically sends that to the laser cutter, and wow, the thing just cuts through 4mm aluminium with the laser. As with all the coats, they're baked to like 200 degrees. If you've bent and tweaked little things, you know, there's a real calming effect for the steel. I think the whole process is very therapeutic for the frame, and they just come up $1 million. So once the base coat's on, then it comes out, cools down, and for another final black for these components, the speckled black for the bash plate. Look at this. Have a go at the Iron Horse bash plate. I did this for the Warhorse as well. Ran it around Australia, good to go. You will lose some powder coat off the center line here where the rocks and the sand just pummel it all day. But there's no paint in the world or coating that's going to withstand that. But the rest of it, yeah, it's brilliant. Rock hard, really strong coating. And then, yeah, to get that finished coat on there, I feel like there's a bit of debate with powder coat versus 2-pack acrylic paint. You know, spray painting versus powder coating. But I've actually had professional spray painters tell me for frames they recommend getting powder coat, because the modern powder coat technologies now, it's a game changer. As it is, there's a little spot here where I have to scrape away the powder coat for the earthing wire of the harness to go on. And man, when I did that on the Warhorse, I had a hammer and screwdriver just chiseling away at it for 15 minutes, scraping it. It just does not want to come away from the steel. It is such a permanent fusion, you know. It's literally fusing plastic to steel in a way that it's pretty epic. It's awesome. So look at it. I mean, oh, look at it. She's $1 million now. Awesome. Let me just give you a rundown on this thing. Like, I've had a bit of a look, and just my experience over the years. There's some overkill bash plate designs, and then at the other side of the spectrum, there's some flimsy rubbish, and Swiss cheesed flimsy rubbish with holes everywhere. Let me just point out that if you ride in Australia, especially you find yourself going through the bush, even in the outback, you don't want any holes at the front here. It just becomes a grass and dead leaf trap. It just scoops up fire hazard straight into the, and just traps leaves and grass seeds and all sorts of crap down in. And I've proven it with the standard bloody Coke can bash plate on there. There was leaves and all sorts of stuff in there, and you can smell it smoking when you pull up. It's like, that's no good. So I've gone for a fully enclosed front. I've seen comments of people saying, oh, the engine's going to get too hot. That's just bullshit. These things run so efficiently. On the Dark Horse 2 that I sold to Hollis, I had a Touratech bash plate, and it comes up to here. Mate, I had that thing for hours, gear for gear, just doing takes in the sand, flogging the bejesus out of it. It's never overheated the bike. Yeah, it was running up in its temperature, but the cooling system on this motor, it's pretty efficient. You're better off having full protection. That's where the maximum, you know, you look from there to there, after that little guard, is the maximum jet blast of rocks and debris and everything. But I opened up gills on the side just to, you know, get that flow going and suck a lot of air out. So the problem with the majority of modern adventure bikes, the current range of adventure bikes, is a lot of them are full road bike style frames with an underslung bare engine. And when I say bare engine, there's no frame rails coming around the motor to then attach a bash plate to. You look into it, a lot of these new adventure bikes, they're just bare aluminium sump and cases with flimsy little bash guards screwed into the actual engine case. Disaster waiting to happen. At least Yamaha, they've had the second thought to add these bolt-on frame rails, which are really good actually, because if it takes a big hit, and you can bend these, and you will bend them, but they're replaceable. You're not writing off the bike because it needs a new frame. You just replace these bars. But I went for this configuration because once you bolt up, this mounts at 8 points, by the way. There's 2 at the very back. Then there's these 2 existing side mounts that actually go straight through. So you're sandwiching more steel together. Just enhances the strength even more. And then utilize these existing mounts of the normal bash plate through here. With the skimmer angle at the front, this design, I just wanted it to be strong bull bar like. It's not too heavy. It's like 2.5 kilos, I think. And have that ability to skim when it bellies out, like when you really case in the dirt. I don't want it to anchor, and just having that angle there is gonna really add to that, you know, allow it to skim. You're not going to get caught on logs and things as easy if you happen to be crossing logs. I went for 4mm and didn't etch it out too much. Like, this is minimal etching. This is not going to interfere with the strength, and it's going to really draw and suck a lot of that heat out. Not that it even needs to, right? I'm pretty happy with the finished product. I'll do some testing with it. I'm still just developing what kind of spacers, whether I'll use a neoprene or a solid aluminium. But by the time I put the acro on and run the next video, I'll have a purchase page ready to go, and yeah, you can buy it. I'll sound it out. It's not going to be cheap because it's not cheap. There's no point doing it. I wouldn't try and make some cheap junk. This thing is going to protect your engine, and you gotta look at it like a helmet for your engine, because all it takes, like, it's sacrificial ultimately. If it absorbs and crushes and takes all the hit and folds back against the motor to the point where the motor comes out of a big hit, massive rock hit, unscathed, it's done its job, and you are actually riding out of the centre of Australia. You're not all this off trying to putty up a whole sump, or even worse, if you haven't even noticed it and your bike's hemorrhaged all the oil out. It is the most important modification to these big bikes. You've got to put a serious bash plate on if you're loading the bike up and going out back big trips, because just the rocks that come off these front wheels on gravel roads are like 120. Sooner or later you're going to get one through the oil filter, through the right, just ricocheting around through that standard flimsy stuff. It's not good enough. Never going to overheat the motor. I proved it with the last one. It had less ventilation than this. I can start moving right along on the Iron Horse build now. Getting the motor back in. I'm not touching it. I'm not opening it up. As I said, the same process I ran with the Warhorse. I just strip it down, powder coat the frame, wash the motor, get it back in, and yeah, start piecing it together. I found the air intake rubber, got one coming from Italy, brand new. It's aftermarket, but hey, it's better than the original ripped one. And it all looks the part, looks like it should fit, no worries. We're on here, just motorcycle projects left, right and centre. Yep, don't forget to subscribe, like and share the video, become a member if you're keen, and see you soon.